Hello and welcome to another session of Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen and these are my colour conversations. It's that time of month again where I do the colour analysis readings for every birthday month of the year, and this time we'll be looking at what will happen in the month of May 2025. I've been asked why I don't do zodiac signs for these readings, and there's a very specific reason for that. The month of our birth is the one that occurs on all official documents about our lives, and as such, it has a subliminal effect upon us. So the birth month is actually more important on a subliminal level than zodiac signs. We all have birth months. We don't necessarily follow zodiacs. Similarly, colour is also something that works on a subliminal level. We all can see colours, we can all recognise them, and as such, they have an effect upon our lives that works at an unconscious level. So by pairing the subliminal text of our birth month with the unconscious language of colour, I hope to bring something a little different to you in terms of a colour reading that analyses what could be and what might be. This is a general reading, of course, and if it doesn't resonate with you immediately, maybe you'd like to come back to it later. But for now, just settle back and enjoy. This reading is done for people born in the month of April for May 2025. And as usual, the cards have been pre-shuffled. So let's see what they have to offer. The energy that you bring into the month is white on red. The energy that permeates throughout the month is orange on purple. And the energy with which you leave the month is blue on orange. And the underlying energy is red on blue. So let's now have a look at this. There are three colours that are repeated in this reading. The first one is red. Red appears in the unconscious drives, in the energy that you bring with you into the month, and it also appears in the unconscious energy, the underlying energy, as the thing that you're actually doing. Then we have orange, which appears in the middle of the month as the actions that you're undertaking, and by the end of the month, that has moved down into the unconscious as part of the needs that you are displaying. And then we have blue. Blue at the end of the month is part of that activity that you will be engaging in, but it also forms part of the underlying energy in the unconscious needs section. So what does all of this mean? Well, let's begin over here. What you are bringing into the month of May with you is white on red. Red is an unconscious drive that is absolutely filled to the brim with energy. You're jumping out of your skin. You are frustrated. There are things that you want to achieve, things that you want to accomplish, things that you need to do because it makes you feel better. But what happens with that energy? In the real world, you have white, and white means a dissipation or a nothingness. Everything that you do, everything that you try, heads off in a different direction. And so in a way, this entire energy is extremely scattered. You've got the energy internally, you've got the drive, the enthusiasm, the frustration, and also probably the anger that has been built up internally, and you need to express it somehow. But how do you express it? If we look at what's happening in the real world, it's going absolutely nowhere. In terms of the tarot, white on red is the 10 of Swords. This is the message of having been stabbed in the back. Life is at a low ebb, and in the real world, there is no apparent obvious future. This is the sort of feeling where you've given up. Mentally, you are exhausted. Emotionally, you're exhausted. There's nothing left that you have to give as a result of all of the things that have happened to you in April. But now you're entering into May, and with this feeling of exhaustion, of being unable to do anything that has any meaning, because white in the real world means that there is nothing that comes of the action that you are trying to drive from the inner needs, you still are unable to find a particular direction. By the middle of the month, this has changed. Red has now added a bit of blue, and it has become purple. Purple as an unconscious drive is wanting to make things better. It's also an unconscious drive to destroy what has happened before, because purple is both destructive as well as creative in its inception. As a drive internally, it's asking you to make major, possibly catastrophic changes so that you can operate more effectively than you were back here when you felt as though nothing you could do was making any progress. However, that purple energy in the real world comes across as orange. And in fact, orange is all about standing up, being counted, being visibly available to people, so you are socially competent, and it has to do with courage and survival skills. So whatever destructive impulses you have here, whatever healing impulses you have here, things to make things better, in the real world, you have to go out and demonstrate that to others to show that, yes, regardless of how bad it was back here, regardless of how difficult it felt, now you're in a situation where you have managed to heal internally, and now you are showing that you have survived. The slings and arrows of remorse have definitely not been able to kill you off like they felt as though they might have back here. You are, in fact, able to continue on with life because you have the courage and the confidence to greet every change, every distraction, every destructive and potentially healing activity that comes your way. Now, remember, healing is always about the removal of a scab from a sore before the new skin comes through. And in effect, this is what this particular combination offers you. Towards the end of the month, that orange has gone internally. Now, rather than demonstrating your confidence, you now find yourself with a lack of confidence. You need to build up confidence. You need to find the courage to continue. But why is that the case? Well, the healing has been a major issue in the major part of the month. And yes, you have survived the destructive and constructive aspects of that healing. But now you're faced with a period of stagnation. Blue in the real world, in the upper half of the color circle, has to do with having everything just simply go back to the status quo. Whatever came before this stabbing in the back feeling, this 10 of Swords, has now gone into a situation where you're having to simply maintain the status quo. In fact, nothing very much is moving for you at all by the end of May. Orange and blue, however, are also opposites on the colour wheel, and this becomes an issue in that your urge to get out there amongst it and make yourself socially visible and show people that you do have courage and confidence in the real world is being stifled. And it's stifled because the world itself has rules and regulations that are keeping you and your enthusiasms under control. So what does the underlying energy tell us about this? Here we have red and blue. Now, red is traditionally the colour associated with fathers, and blue, the traditional colour associated with mothering. You have a need. Instead of up here where the blue has been a case of social restriction, now that restriction has gone inwards. You feel a need for things to just settle down, and that's part of what has been presented all the way through here. You've wanted the quiet life. You've wanted to be organised, to know that what is coming next is exactly what you are expecting to come next. There are no surprises. But in the real world, red is a dominant colour. Here you are wanting to stand up, to be counted, not like you did here with the orange, but here to actually be dominating, to be the major player in your own Game of Thrones. In terms of the tarot, red on blue is the Three of Wands. So here we have a situation where you've done everything that needed to be done. That's what the blue is about internally. You've organized yourself, you've set things in motion, you've made sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and now in the real world, you have to simply order that things will go the way that you want them to. You're either sending out information and perhaps waiting for your prosperity to come back, or you are waiting for the prosperity to come back so that you can then send out information about the fact that you now have some sort of resources that have accumulated to you. There's a great deal of passion in this particular combination, but never forget that red and blue together always form purple. Purple is both creative and destructive, and here that creativity and destruction has been separated out into activation of your internal dreams, desires, and the things that you need to keep a stable life. So how does this impinge on each of the sections of your month? Well, if we add the blue to the red, of course, we end up with that purple. We end up with that desire for healing. Red and white, however, make pink. And pink is always about vulnerability. Whereas the white here has energy scattered in all directions, the pink that underlines the two colors here mixed in the real world mean that you have very little energy, very little in the way of resources to enable you to move ahead yourself. You need help to overcome this issue here. By the middle of the month, the blue and purple together as drivers become part of that search inward for any form of enlightenment. But it's a spiritual enlightenment, so it's an inner one. It's one rather than the enlightenment that happens with white, where you're looking outwards for whatever it is that you need. Here, it's an inward search, and that inward search is one that requires you to spend some time quietly away from the dramas that happened back here and allows you to recover. Red and orange, on the other hand, as arbiters of what you're going to be doing in the real world, is a difficult combination to have. Red is full of authority and bluster. Orange is full of confidence and also the ability to survive. But there's also hidden within these two an overweening determination to succeed at whatever it is that you are trying to succeed at. And in doing so, you can actually find yourself taking some fairly unhealthy risks. Remember, you're here looking for health. You're searching for a way of fixing the problems that occurred back here. But if you do them with the red and orange way, then you're actually taking risks that might not pay off for you. When we get to the future, we find that the blue and orange, like we have here, that are opposites in the color wheel, but this time the blue and orange are both internally. So you're swinging internally from frustration because you want to show just how well you can survive an issue, and at the same time wanting to be quiet and not noticed so that you don't have to deal with those problems that are causing you to want to jump up and say, hey, stop that, I'm in charge here. The red and blue, once again, come up as purple. And here, both of those are in the real world, and that's a lot healthier than the red and orange way of handling things. Red and orange is risk-taking and potential failure. Red and blue, on the other hand, is being able to weigh up between when do I actually assert myself and when do I simply keep mum and allow life to proceed and the status quo to take over. So how do we go through this period and have the best outcome that's possible. Well, let's look at the colours that are missing. There is no black, but you do have white. You have red, but no yellow. There is no green, but you do have blue. There's no brown. You do have orange. There's no grey. You have purple. There is no pink, even though it is inherent in here and also in these two. And finally, there is no cyan. Let's just move those up a little so you can see them a little more clearly. And let's have a look at these. These colours here, the white, red, orange, purple, and blue, are the colours of the skills that you are using throughout the month. All of these are part and parcel of the things that you are doing and can do easily, or are attempting to do as easily as you possibly can in order to travel through the month of May. On the other hand, these colours, black, brown, yellow, grey, green, pink, and cyan, are the skills that you are currently not using. And because you're not using them, they have very little ability to help you through the problems that you may be receiving as you travel through May, but they're also not aiding you in the benefits that you are receiving through the use of these colours. So, once again, the idea is choose from among these 7 the one colour that's most appealing, and then the one colour that is least appealing. And when you do so, add those to your repertoire in some way. Put them into your life. Make them visible to yourself. By choosing the best and the worst, you're actually incorporating all of them, and each of them will impinge upon the way in which you travel through the month of May. And as you do so, you'll find that your reactions will alter subtly. By the end of May, you'll find that instead of being swung between passivity and aborted activities, you might find yourself just somewhere else that's a lot more pleasant. Are you prepared to do so? This is a colour reading for people born in May for the month of May 2025. As usual, the cards have been pre-shuffled, so let's now see what they offer us. You come into May with yellow on white. By the middle of May, you have purple on white. And as you leave May, you have brown on red. And the underlying energy here is blue on yellow. So what do we have here? White appears twice in this reading, and both times it's in the unconscious position, so it's a driver. There is a sense here of wanting some sort of enlightenment. That's what the white is about. You also have yellow twice, once as the incoming energy, as the action that you take, but also in the underlying energy, it becomes the driver, the need that you have to activate in order to be able to traverse through the month of May easily. So what does this mean? White internally is always a search for some form of enlightenment, but it's also an emptiness. There is a feeling here that regardless of all of the things that you have done in April and in March before that, all of those things have now emptied out all of the beliefs and attributes that you had previously. All of those things that you believed in, all of those things that you had done beforehand have now been emptied out, and now you have a need for new information. You're curious about how life will travel from now on in. And in the real world, what you're doing about that curiosity is you're learning about how to do things in a different way. Yellow externally is generally a happy color. It's generally associated with joy, with happiness, with the seeking of truth. And in fact, that whole combination, yellow and white, is a seeker after truth. You're asking yourself to enlighten yourself through the process of taking on experiences that you probably would not have attempted before. So you're doing something new. By the middle of the month, that drive for enlightenment actually takes you in the opposite direction, because yellow and purple are opposites on the color wheel. So whereas here you're actually learning new skills, here you're incorporating them into your internal repertoire. But you're also creating massive change as well. Purple has to do with both creativity and destruction. So here you are changing things around quite markedly in order to satisfy that curiosity that you have internally. Are you going to be able to take that learning that you have done as you come into May and transform it into some sort of creative process? It's a very difficult thing to swing from one extreme to the other without upsetting the status quo. And because of this, by the end of May, you're going to find yourself fairly frustrated internally. Red as a driver is always about having too much energy and nowhere specifically to go. But there's some hope here too, because the brown that comes out of that frustration, out of that excess energy, is all about being able to set goals and also to learn those practical skills. So you've got knowledge here, you've got imagination here, and now you're putting that imagination and knowledge together into a form that enables you to use your practical skills, use the things that you've learned in the past, and also the new skills that you are learning now to start to create some wish fulfillment. Brown in the real world is all about hard work. It's about getting knuckled down and doing the things that you need to do in order to activate the knowledge that you've gained and also the imaginative ways in which you want to put that knowledge to the test. Be aware, though, that the red internally, all of that excess energy, can often be enough to upset the goals that you're making. So when you create the jobs that you give to yourself to work, don't jump the gun, don't jump in too quickly. Because if you do so, you might just find that those passions are driving you into a direction that you really don't need to go in, because it is not necessarily a good thing for you. In fact, it can be quite destructive. That's a warning that you have back here. The underlying energy here, blue and yellow are the actual teachers. This is learning, and this is expressing that learning. The yellow, if we look at it as a driving force, is different to the learning that you're doing up here. Now you are seeking after information. And when you seek for that information, you're spending a lot of time quietly examining the status quo. There are also jobs to be done that's always associated with blue. There are things that need to be accomplished, and you're learning new ways to do this. If we mix the blue and yellow together, we end up with green, and green is opportunity. It's a change in values, and it's also a way of starting off in a different direction. So how does this underlying energy impinge upon the travel that you are making through the month of May? Well, if we put yellow and white together, then we get an overwhelming desire for some sort of enlightened truth. You're looking for a way of making sure that what you are learning is exactly what you need to know. There's a certain amount of curiosity about the things that are distractions, but the yellow tends to suggest that you're looking for very specific information. And in fact, it mirrors what the energy is that you're bringing into the month itself. Blue and yellow, like the blue and yellow here, turns this combination into green. And green in the real world is always opportunities and new starts that are coming directly at you. If it was an internal thing, like could happen here, then the green is a desire for new starts. But green, and as a result of blue and yellow, as a combination, is the actuality of those new beginnings. But remember that it isn't green as a color as such. These two are separate. So there is a swing between knowledge and incorporating that knowledge into your personal data set, in being able to understand what it is that you are learning. This is what offers the beginning of the month for you. When we take that underlying energy and we add it to the major part of the month, we similarly have the yellow and white. There is still this urge for the finding of truth. We want to understand what it is that we're learning, but when the yellow and white come together as a driver, then we're not just learning anything, we're learning very specific things. We're looking for truth only. In the real world, we have blue and purple. Now, these two become a very dark purple, and that's almost as difficult to deal with as the color black, because a very dark purple is about as close to black as you can get. That means there is an inward turning. You are moving from a state of imagination to a state of stagnation, but also inner understanding. So part of this learning journey that you're making, this search for truth and nothing but the truth during the middle of the month, now becomes a way of stepping outside of yourself, going inward into your own unconscious mind, into your inner world, having some conversations with yourself. In fact, it's a spiritual journey. By the end of the month, of course, we have some changes taking place. No longer is there this feeling of emptiness and the need to both find information and also go inwards to try and make some sort of sense out of it that will enable you to make changes in your life, even if those changes are fairly catastrophic. Here we now have red and yellow as the driving force. Now, red and yellow become orange in the color wheel. Orange is always about courage, confidence, being able to survive issues that are headed towards you. But because these are internal, because these are drivers, it means there is a distinct lack of confidence. Something has gone wrong back here, and now you're feeling the need to reassert yourself. In the real world, we have blue and brown. Now, brown and blue are both colors associated with hard work. Blue is the hard work that is required in order to maintain the status quo. It is all about just doing the grift that needs to be done, because if you don't do it, nobody else will. On the other hand, brown is all about your own aspirations, your goals, your wishes, the things that you have planned, the new skills that you need to acquire in order to be able to carry out those plans. So blue and brown are different ways of working, but the work nevertheless is quite hard. And because the driver internally is one of requiring confidence, it means that you are learning something new, which is coming from the information that you have back here, the yellow and the purple. And having learned those new skills, you're now putting them into action. Are you going to be able to find the courage that you need in order to make these visible in the real world? Well, let's have a look at the colors that are missing. There is no black, although you do have white. There is red. There is yellow. There's no green, even though green is hidden here. You do have blue. You have brown. And whereas orange doesn't exist as such, there is hidden orange in these two colors. There is no gray. You do have purple. There's no pink, and there is no cyan. So these 6 colors here, the white, red, blue, yellow, purple, and brown, are all colors associated with the skills and attributes that you are able to use quite freely throughout the month of May. These colors, on the other hand, the black, gray, green, pink, orange, and cyan, are the skills that you are not using. Now, why aren't you using them? Well, that depends on what the reasons are for why you're feeling so very empty at the beginning and through most of the month. In fact, these 6 colors hold the keys to how you can proceed forward. Choose from among these 6 the one color that is most appealing and then the one color that is least appealing. And when you put those 2 colors into your repertoire, you'll find that you actually end up using the energy that you have here as your underlying energy, the energy to both teach and learn. And you'll find that when you add that, by the time you get to the end of May, that frustration will have dissipated somewhat, and the skills that you are learning and putting into the real world will come to you more easily. The graft will not feel quite as difficult as this card tends to suggest. So, are you prepared to do that? And now we'll do a reading for people born in the month of June for May 2025. As usual, the cards have been pre-shuffled, so let's now see what they have to offer to us. The energy that you bring into the month is yellow on black. The energy that permeates the most of the month is cyan on green, and you leave the month with yellow on yellow. And throughout all of this, the underlying energy is orange on purple. Let's now examine this. The one color that appears here most often is yellow. Yellow appears in the energy that you're bringing with you into the month, and it appears in the conscious physical activity section. But it also reappears at the end of the month in both the conscious and the unconscious section. So it's the need as well as the action. When we have the same color, top and bottom, in one of these combinations, there's always a warning associated with this. And the warning has to do with the fact that the drive internally can only produce one particular type of activity, and that is exactly the same activity as the drive desires. Unlike here, where the drive and the actual activity are different, and that's the way it happens with most cards, when you have the same top and bottom, there is a restriction to what you can accomplish. So what does all of this mean? When we have black in the interior, it means that there is a desire for time out. You need to get away from the issues that have been impinging upon you and causing you a fair amount of grief. The black can be a seeking after just simply getting away from others, but it can also be a need to delve into some sort of psychic, but also depressive mental states. That is, you're seeking inward for answers, and the further and further and further you seek for those answers, the more you need them. But how are you actually dealing with them? As you come into May, you're finding yourself in the real world putting on a happy face. You feel pretty down and a desire to just keep away from things, but in the real world, you're actually pretending very well that everything is fine with your world. This is a rather difficult combination to deal with because in nature, yellow and black together are nature's warning sign of venom. Animals and plants both produce yellow and black when they are dangerous. And that is because they are a warning to other creatures, keep away. don't come too close. Otherwise, I may destroy you. And this is, in fact, some of the energy that we have that you're bringing with you into the month of May. It means that you want to be left alone, but in the real world, you're not getting that opportunity. So you put on the actions of someone who is quite gregarious, quite happy to be out there in the world doing things. You're learning stuff. You're being able to present yourself as someone who is easy to get along with, but internally, all you want is to get away and to be left alone. By the middle of the month, this has changed entirely. Now, the seeking for solitude has turned into a seeking for adventure, the seeking for alternative paths, a change in values, but also a change in direction for opportunities. You want to head in a different direction. You're not happy with constantly having to pretend that you are a joyful person when inside you don't actually feel very joyful. Now you want a new start. And that new start can only happen as a result of your desire to change your attitude. Your attitude back here is one of wanting to get away. This is also wanting to get away. But this is wanting to get away because you have the opportunity to recognize when something comes your way that you may grasp and take off with. In the real world, what you're doing, however, is just playing a waiting game. You're just sitting there. Cyan in the real world is all about comfort. It's about bliss. It's about being where you want to be without having to make any changes. But it's also a fair degree of stagnation. You are jumping out of your mind in wanting to make changes, but in the real world, nothing much is changing. It's not because you can't make changes, it's because what happens in the real world causes you to have to, again, make a pretense. Whereas here is a pretense of happiness, here it's a pretense of contentment. You want to remain where you are. You want to be able to take opportunities and head off in a different direction. But in the real world, there is no opportunity for you there. Cyan has very little green in it. There is a little tiny bit, but not a lot. And so you are sitting here looking as though you're happy and content with everything in your life, when underneath you want to be left alone and you want to go somewhere else. You want to do something different. Where does that lead you? Well, it takes you straight to yellow on yellow. By the end of the month, you will be highly stressed. Yellow as an internal color is always about a form of enlightenment that causes fear. You want to make changes, that's quite obvious here. You want to be left alone, which is obvious here, but now that neither of those things have come to fruition, and instead you're now stuck in a place where you really have been exposed to so much information, to so many different things that have impinged upon your consciousness. You can't stay isolated. You have no opportunity to take off elsewhere. So now you are in a state almost of paralysis. In the real world, however, you're still doing that happy face thing that you were doing back here at the beginning of the month. Altogether, yellow on yellow generally is a very potentially positive way of looking at life. But as I said earlier, when it's the same color top and bottom, it means that what you are aiming for, that is, I want to be happy, but I feel rather fearful, in the real world becomes, I look happy, but I'm really quite disturbed. I'm quite anxious. And so there is here a mental conflict that's taking place between the desire for happiness and the inability to create it in the real world, all packaged up together because of potential fear, and that is because of mental overload. You've got mental indigestion. You've been faced or forced to face so many different bits of information that have landed in your brain that you really don't want to learn anymore. You've been brightened up, but that brightening up also causes a fair degree of wanting to get back to being left alone. The underlying energy here is interesting because it really has very little relationship to what is actually going on in the month. Orange on purple are colors of change. Purple interior is always about healing. So whatever's happened here that's caused you to want to retreat, or here that has caused you to want to start again somewhere else, or here that has caused you to become fearful, whatever that is, you want to change it. And you want to change it in such a way as to make yourself feel better. In the real world, however, the way in which you do that is to get out there, become socially visible, and show the world that you have the courage and the confidence to survive, to do the things that you need to do in order to create that healing internally. How does this underlying energy impinge upon your journey? Purple and black are both colors of spirituality. They're both colors associated with going inward. Black is a more deep investigation of your own inner self. Purple is more associated with those things that you need in order to be able to feel as though you are not just in control of your spiritual self, but that you are in touch with it. And in touch with it to the extent that you actually find yourself feeling quite peaceful and calm with that interaction. In the real world, orange and yellow make for the potential for a great deal of prosperity. Orange is confidence, it's survival. Yellow in the real world is all about feeling happy. So when you are confident and feeling happy about that confidence, surviving, and at the same time being joyful, then there is often an attraction to you of prosperity. Now, just what that prosperity takes, what form it takes, is entirely up to you. Sometimes it actually presents itself as a potential for increase in money, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it is simply being able to feel healthier or be healthier than you actually feel. Because remember, down here, there is this need to withdraw, and here is the need to become healthy. So in the real world, maybe that health is there. You just haven't been able to connect with it consciously. By the middle of the month, we have purple impinging upon the green. Purple and green are both colors of change as well. Whereas green is a desire for new growth, new directions, purple is a desire for destruction and recreation. I want to start again. How do I do it? Well, potentially I crash everything that I had beforehand and begin a new life. Together, those two enable you to move forward. In the real world, you have orange and cyan. Now, while orange is actually the opposite of blue, cyan sits right next to that. So in effect, these two are a swinging backwards and forwards between standing up and being counted and taking risks, because you don't have to show that you are worthy of the title of being a courageous person unless you've actually done something that is risky. And at the same time, you're also working towards this peace and quiet and harmony in your life. So between the two of them, there is this backwards and forwards between I can do it, I can survive it, I can take on the challenge, and just leave me alone. I'm perfectly happy where I am. Don't hassle me. By the time we get to the future, we're now looking at something entirely different. Purple and yellow are opposites on the color wheel. And because of this, and because they are both in the internal world, they once again give us a movement backwards and forwards between I'm learning an awful lot, or I need to learn an awful lot, and I need to change. I need to make things better. I need to destroy the old in order to incorporate the new. So there is a mental struggle happening here. I said here earlier that this actually is something like mental indigestion. Well, this is not just mental indigestion, it's also spiritual indigestion. You've had about as much as you can take of all of the different bits of information, both coming from within and also coming from without, that you are almost overloaded. Orange and yellow, like orange and yellow here, are all about material goods. So while you are vacillating between wanting to overcome fears and wanting to create catastrophic changes that will enable you to feel better, there is in your real world the potential for all sorts of abundance to occur. Are you actually able to recognize that abundance and to make use of it when it arrives? Well, that depends on how you interact with the colors that are missing. So let's have a look at those. You have black, but no white. There's no red, but you do have yellow. You have green, but no blue. There's no brown, but you do have orange. There is no grey, but you do have purple. There is no pink, but you do have cyan. So what we have here, these 6 colors, black, yellow, green, orange, purple, and cyan, are the skills that you have been using or will be using throughout the month of May in order to travel from a state of pretending to be happy, but at the same time feeling fairly dark inside, to a state of everything's wonderful in my world, but I'm also a little bit anxious about how to proceed from here. The colors that are missing, white, red, blue, pink, grey, and brown, represent those skills that are not in force during the month. So, as per usual, I'm asking you to take the one color that is most appealing out of those 6, and then the color that is least appealing out of those 6, and incorporate those into your life in some way so that you can change the anxiety that is inherent in this future and move forward into a future that is full of joy and happiness, which is the potential that is hidden here, if only you can get away from this feeling of dread that comes as a result of coming into the month with that same yellow in the real world, but not feeling as comfortable as you could. So, are you prepared to go ahead and do that? And there we have it. Another set of readings that will follow you and your birth month through the month of May. I certainly hope that you found something in these readings that is of benefit to you, and perhaps it might make you think a little bit more deeply as to how we can tell things about our futures without necessarily being aware of what the specifics are in each case. Certainly, for the rest of May, I hope that you have a wonderful time, that the colours in your life bring you many blessings. Until next time, bye.